Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Gary Paytown.
Here.
Mr. Jeff Jones.
Here.
Chairman Art Graham. Ms. Frances Pawlowski. Here. Mr. David McGraw.
Here.
All right, before we start this meeting, I want to let everyone know we do have a hard stop today. We must stop at 4:30. So if we do run over some items, it may not be to the next meeting. With that, I would like to do approval of the minutes before we do courtesy to the floor. Do you have any information?
I just want to go ahead and move that we approve the meeting minutes from July 27th, 2022, excuse me, June 27th, 2022, as well as July 13th, 2022. I personally don't have any comments.
Do you want a second?
I'll second.
With that, they both have been approved. All right, items for discussion are courtesy to the floor. We have 2 speaker request cards. The first one is the Birds. Would you like to come up and speak to us?
Did you say Dating Bird?
Yes. Okay, sorry. Please state your name, address. Okay.
My name is Daylene Bird. My address is 123 6th Avenue South, Jacksonville Beach. I am
One second. Is she recording? It's very hard to hear her.
I can't.
She is on?
Full question now.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay.
Let me start over.
It doesn't sound like it's on. I just want to verify it beforehand.
It might not be.
It doesn't sound like it's on. There. Okay. Better?
No.
No?
Go ahead and start over if you don't mind.
Okay. My name is Daylene Bird. My address is 123 6th Avenue South, Unit A, Jacksonville Beach. And I am here because I wanted to just briefly tell this council thank you very much for listening to Chris and I. We came last time to talk about the redevelopment projects, phase 3C, projects 4 and 5. I did look at the new drawings on the website, and it is definitely an improvement, so I really appreciate you guys listening to the community and taking our feedback. I wanted to know if and when that would be finalized. The drawing that's out there now. And then also to say, you know, if there's any chance we can get speed bumps on that road, that'd be amazing.
I will just start off with speed bumps within our jurisdiction. Okay. That would be please okay. And they tend to be a large discussion point. As far as the time frame, would you like to take over with that? Have you spoken to?
Yeah, honestly, to be determined. Public Works is working on a few more details to get to that 90% construction drawing that I think we discussed a little bit at the last meeting. Once we're there, we actually had a meeting on it earlier today. Staff and then all of the agency members are going to physically be going and placing door hangers, knocking on doors to get the word out that there will be another public meeting to make sure everybody's aware. So stay tuned. As far as the date, I do not have that right now.
Okay. Perfect.
But we'll have one soon. So.
All right. Wonderful.
Thank you.
So we're good to go then, right?
Yeah. Thank you for coming and speaking.
Thank you so much. By the way, I need to see what's going to ask about the steps, the process you would go through to maybe be able
You
to
have to come put your name. Sorry.
Chris Sensi, I'm sorry, it's my wife. But basically, we would like to know what process, if it is doable, to put a couple of speed bumps on 6th Avenue South, because when they leave and enter the park, sometimes it's full speed, 50 miles an hour down that street. It's crazy, like 40 to 50. I mean, just full blast, run through stop signs, so it's pretty unsafe. So.
We'll put that on our list to discuss for you as well in the future date.
All right, thank you very much, and thanks again for listening to us last time. It looks a lot better than it
No
did.
problem.
You guys have a good day.
We also have a speaker request card in regards to agenda item on our list today. Stephen, would you like to come up?
I can just wait till the hearing. I'm sorry, I just meant.
Okay, you want to wait until we actually do the item?
Yes, please.
Okay, we can do that. All right. Moving forward, let's go ahead and do Cape, and then we're going to bump up the camera system after Cape and report.
Ready?
Yeah, please.
I was going to request from the board, just to be just a little different. I got a lot of reference material, and probably all of us are going to have to talk. So I think y'all will be able to hear us if you're not. It will record, and Is that okay? It's not,
I'm perfectly fine with that. Do we have any issue with not having your name on file, on the record?
I'll give my name.
No, you're good.
As long as it's staff, we're fine.
Okay, thank you. Just an opening statement for the board real quick. Introductions, behind me is Preston Bullen, he's with Siemens. Next to his right is Detective Brett Burrell. To my right is Commander Tom Bingham. And they'll all have a piece of this, maybe not to deliver, but they all might have to answer questions from the board. When y'all sat me on this project about 2.5 years ago, but even though I only been chief 6 months, I've learned a few things. And here, there's so many projects and things pending that I felt before y'all challenged me with, we want a good camera system. We want a camera system that effective and work and has coverage and with one maintenance contract that's suitable and all the things y'all instructed me, not just this body, but council also. I wanted to, a few things I learned was nothing's written down. There was nothing written down with this as far as plans or camera locations or maintenance schedules or anything. There was nothing really writing on our end. I already knew this, but there was no one person in charge of the system, unless you want to count me. Besides our IT person, Ricardo, who does cameras part-time, the next person who knew the most about the system was me. And that's pretty scary. Ricardo, our IT person, he's since been promoted, he's still in the city. He only could do this part-time, and still only does this part-time. And it was kind of a hobby for him, and he learned about it, but we were fortunate that he took an interest in it. Brett Burrell, behind me, Detective Brett Burrell, I had to wait to grab him when he had a double shoulder surgery and he was on light duty for a year, so I had him tracked. So he was my camera guy for a year that researched all this. And what I resolved myself to do, like the radio system and a few other topics, is I wasn't going to spend one more dime on this camera system until I knew what we had and where, as far as cameras go. Nobody could tell me how many cameras we had or where they were at. What was working, what was not working. What hardware and software was working and what was substandard or outdated. Also, what hardware or software needed to be purchased. How do we get more coverage for cameras and where do those new cameras need to be? Basically, we audited everything we had from bottom up and we created a white paper which is still being proofed and will be published. Basically, that will be a roadmap for us. If we're not here 3 years from now or 4 years from now or whenever, there's a roadmap. What we were all thinking, why we did what we did, every camera location, when they were put in, all the technical specifications, so we can pass that on with knowledge to the next person, and also explain why we did what we did and the decisions we made. So that has all been completed. But I felt this board was due an explanation of why it takes so long. I've heard all of y'all say that to me before. Why does everything take so long? Well, first thing is bodies. I had nobody. I had to wait till Brett had surgery and I trapped him back in his office and put him in charge of this. And he's looking around like, why me? Because we're here. Commander Bingham, because I'm fixing to be out of the camera business full time, returning the operation and implementation of the system over to him because he's the services commander. And IS also, he was part-time, and there's still some staff shortages in IS to this day. Plus we had COVID. There's 4 to 5 different camera systems, although the same manufacturing, same system, there's 4 or 5 different systems. Everywhere from the tennis courts to South Beach Park to downtown. And there are 4 or 5 different department heads and departments where all these things touch. And I had to work this around to create their schedules, which they have a lot of other stuff to do. Gentlemen, so right now. So I got a lot of general instructions from this board and the council and the city manager, finance. I got a lot of general instructions. Information systems, our IT, at the macro level, I had to take all that, and plus add our own needs. and combine that with a little bit of common sense and good judgment, and this is what we came up with. These are our recommendations for the camera system that we're presenting to you now. We tried real hard to get this in at the beginning of the budget cycle, although we didn't know which budget cycle was going to be, last year, this year, next year, or 3 years from now. So we were able to get it in at least at the beginning of the yearly budget cycle. And what you see is getting ready to be presented to you is a sum total of everything we kind of put together, and this is what we came up with. I want to add one more thing. We found inadequacy in some things like the maintenance contract. And I was in the room when some of those decisions were made years ago, and they're absolutely substandard, which is part of the reason we're in this. There was no one in charge, no one to do maintenance, no one to do routine checks on the system. So I want to remind the board, before we go through all this, this takes care of all that. It's basically a turnkey system. To the best of our ability that we were able to create. So that's my opening statement. With that, I'll turn it over. If there's no questions for me, I'll be chiming in here and there throughout the rest of this presentation. And if you have any questions for me, I can answer them now.
Sure. Well, this is just sort of a historical. I want to get some facts. It's a real quick question. Okay, so we put in the downtown camera system. To me, it seems not too long ago, but time flies.
2017.
When was that?
2017.
Okay, so it's almost 4 years, 5 years ago.
Yes, ma'am.
We're going to go ahead and let you guys do your presentation, and then we'll save our questions till the end.
Good afternoon. How are you all? I just want to reiterate what the chief said, that this was done as a much painstaking collaborative effort, and I'm coming in on the tail end. So if you have any technical questions that I can't ask, I'll refer to my subject matter experts on the row behind me. But on the first slide that we go to, it's for Sunshine Park. Currently, there's only 3 cameras down there that are, did you want this up on PowerPoint?
Did you save it somewhere in the drive?
We were just going to do handouts like we were going to do for council.
We've got the handout. All right.
Just go watch it.
So on the second slide, once it comes up, we start with Sunshine Park, South NCRA, obviously. Currently, there's 3 cameras down there in the skate ball. They offer very limited views. Technology has already been surpassed probably twice over. Our recommendation after a review of the park and the assets that are down there now, with the new, much improved improvements down there with the park and whatnot, we're recommending that not only to replace those 3 cameras, but we've identified 13 additional locations, 4 cameras to get the maximum field of view that we can, considering all the obstacles, the trees, the park, etc. Along with the rest of the camera project, all these upgrades, not only with the cameras themselves, will be at least double or increase in the megapixel output. But we're increasing all the infrastructure that goes along with it. The smart switches, the connections. So not only are we getting a better quality product as a camera, but it's a higher efficiency, higher horsepower coming out of the system. Next slide. When it comes down to it, to replace those 3 cameras plus the additional 13 cameras with all the infrastructure upgrades and et cetera, materials costs, labor costs, the total cost for the Sunshine Park is just a little over $286,000. Now, with the core downtown CRA area, We constantly, they did a phenomenal job as far as putting all this together. We've been tweaking the process all the way up to like 3 hours ago, just to make sure that we got everything in there, that everything's covered, most of it we can cover. So I can break this down. Currently, there's 43 cameras in the downtown area that have been piecemeal since July of 2017. Of those 43, I believe all but just a few are end of life or end of support, meaning they've gone outside the warranty basically. So of the 43 cameras, we're looking at taking 37 of those cameras and repositioning. And when I say reposition, a few will be moved, but a majority will come down from the height they are now down to 14 or 15 feet, which will give us better views and will also benefit us on the maintenance side that I'll get to later. But 37 of those 43 have been, will be replaced. 6 of them, because of the locations that they're in, we don't want duplicated efforts. 6 of those are being removed. 6 locations are being removed. However, we're still going to ask that those 6 cameras be replaced. At a rough cost of about $1,600 per camera, we'd like to put those cameras, for lack of a better term, on a shelf. So in the next 3 to 5 year period, the camera goes down to any type of issues. We have one on hand that would just plug and play, so to say. We've also identified 46 new locations for cameras to cover increased coverage on the boardwalk, better visibility on all the major municipal lots downtown, on the Latham Plaza, main avenues of approach, First Street, and some of the avenues. And again, just the same with South Beach Park, all that comes with upgraded infrastructure, smart switches, the fiber optics, the connections. So the connectivity issue won't be as wonky as it is currently. With that, with the cost of bringing in the 46 new cameras, we're going to put up 7 new poles with that. The cost of replacing the 37 that are currently out there and then putting the 6 in stock with future replacement with labor. Total cost for just the downtown CRA cameras comes in at $631,400. Next one. Now the service agreement. The previous service agreement, or the one that's still currently in place, expires in August. But as the chief said earlier, when these cameras were put in by different departments and divisions, they all came with different service agreements. Some have already expired. Some never had a service agreement on them for different locations. And this current one for the downtown cameras expires in August. Now, with the service agreement that is in place now, the company will come out twice per year, correct? They will come out twice per year to do an on-site visit of each camera, kind of take a look at it, and to clean it. And I think as we can all agree, you get your car washed today, you spend a week down here at the beach, and within 5, 6, 7 days, you haven't cleaned it already, you get that nice film on it. So it's the same as the camera system. With this new service agreement, on top of all the smart switches that are going in and the diagnostics or remote diagnostics that can be done fairly quickly, they will come out on a monthly basis. And as currently, we've had to arrange either through our own personal expenditure or whatnot, we've had to arrange to get a bucket truck in order to get those people up to the 24-foot height level to clean and inspect those cameras. In this new service agreement, all that is included, along with more 24/7 monitoring, quarterly reports, firmware updates, software updates, to keep that advanced system operating at peak capacity as we go through the next couple of years. So this new agreement will include not only the cameras at the police department, downtown CRA, police property room, city hall, Cradle Creek, Sunshine Park, tennis court, and golf courses. All these, I think in total, there's 139 cameras throughout the city that operate on different servers, operate on different operating systems, and have different service agreements, like I said, some that are already expired.
One thing with the service agreements, we counted 4 at least. What I asked me to do, IT asked me to do, is please get one service agreement instead of 4 or 5 different ones with the same deliverables. So of course, the service agreement for CRA South and downtown CRA is going to be prorated for the number of cameras they cover. Tennis Center and all the other locations will probably come out of general fund or a different fund. And finance to get all that together and prorated so CRA is not paying for all of them. We just wanted all 140-ish cameras in this whole city, including the police department, the golf course. We wanted one service agreement. That's part of why this took so long. And we thought it was a pretty good way to do it. Paid one bill, one year at a time, and covers all cameras. So this cost is not prorated for y'all. I mean, you could do some quick division and see about how y'all will be responsible for the majority of the cameras, but certainly not all 140 for the cost of the concrete.
I'm glad you interrupted, because that was Go ahead.
So with the service agreement, I just mentioned that we have a lot more monthly meetings, quarterly agreements, and firmware and software upgrades. Excellent.
Hold on one second. Let me add one more thing. I was in the room last time decisions were made on the service contract, and basically it was twice a year. Like a command thing said, it'd be 3 days, and you couldn't see that. And we're trying to do it twice a year, and we had to get our own bucket truck to do it. And the decision was made to use the electric bucket truck, 100-foot, which we didn't have a day. So there was times when I had my old IT guy up at the top of the bucket truck that we borrowed, cleaning lenses with a rag and a squirt bottle. I was there. It's not exaggeration, it's just the truth. So this maintenance agreement will take care of a lot of those things for us. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
And is the favorite term of now is it everything combined, it's one neck to choke. The company installing is also doing the maintenance agreement, so we don't have to go to company A for this, company B for this, company C for this. But as you can see, 3-year service agreement with the escalating cost of about 5.5%, years 2 and 3. And as the chief said, that final $584,000 will be prorated, depending on the cameras and the different divisions and the funds coming out.
And so y'all know the one neck to choke term is finance. They wanted a system that we could, and the deliverables in the maintenance contract that would allow us to call one person if anything's wrong at all, instead of multiple different people. One company, one contact number, these cameras need to be cleaned, maintenance needs to be done, or we need a report or anything. It's one person to call and one company to call, which we currently don't have now.
So the next thing we're looking at is, we titled the command post, but with all the cameras and all the infrastructure and all the data storage and all the fiber optic wire and everything being assembled here, we have to be able to obviously view it. That would take all the fun out of it if we just had cameras in the way it was looking at. Currently, the conference room and the SWAT room and the police department are used for different style command posts, depending on the scale and complexity of the event being held. We have some monitors in there that we have jokingly referred to as the in-house heat squad, where we have actually sent officers to Best Buy and shoved monitors in the backs of cars and tried to put them up ourselves and try to make connections. We asked for an actual command post style monitors, data servers, all the infrastructure that we need so we can look at up to 140 cameras in either room, depending on the scale, like I said, of the event.
I want to emphasize the last bullet in the command post. Slide monitors will be professionally installed and integrated into our system. I can probably maybe get away with giving you some on the ground things, but last time we bought 380-inch monitors, we had to take them out of the boxes, shove them in the back of the SUVs, transport them back here. This was me and 3 commanders and the IT guy. We had to drill the hole, we had to get in the attic, run the wires, and of course, there are only 2 handy people, the commander, Carmen, and the IT guy. So the rest of us were making fun of them while they did it, and it was not the way we're going to operate a $1 million system. It was just unprofessional, and that's what we're trying to get away from. We want professionally installed. So once again, one neck to choke, something goes wrong, a monitor doesn't work, we call one person, and he will come repair it, we'll try to do it. Plus, we know it all works and it's all integrated. Command, good.
So with this, we're installing an additional 4 65-inch 4K LED monitors, and these aren't the ones that we can just go off the shelf and buy at Best Buy, per se. These are the ones that are, and I don't know the exact technical term, but they're much higher end, so the image that is usually remains the same on and on, doesn't get burned into the screen itself. In addition, with 3 high-performance video workstation and all materials, cabling, electric, and training in order how to use the system, with materials and labor that comes to showing we're $56,000. So in summary, totaling up South End CRA, the downtown CRA service agreement, which will be prorated. Command posts in order to view all these, the grand total, I didn't even say it, but as you can see, there's a little over $1.5 million.
That's good.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. Those of you who know me, and those who don't, this has been a thorn for me and has been a driving force, so I am super stoked that this is here today. So thank you for the time and effort. I know that it was possible to do when you started, and I do appreciate you guys doing that. On that note, I have 3 questions, so I'll open it up to the board for additional questions for you. For one, for the South End cameras, I don't see anywhere in any of these costs replacement to fix what might be torn up by putting the infrastructure in. Do we know how much or what might be destroyed by putting in the fiber optics and all that other good stuff? Should we incorporate that cost in with our trails budget? Did that discussion come up for costs as well?
We did get with the other departments, and that was one of the multiple meetings we had, and all the other departments said this time there is no overlap on camera location or fiber optic cable location of any of downtown CRA and South Beach Park. There's no overlap right now. As I said, that includes future possible projects, every conceivable project we can think of in the downtown area also. There's no overlap or no problem.
Because I heard you correctly, that I know that the downtown area, we're talking about going fiber optics versus Wi-Fi, and that would require some kind of tunneling, I'm assuming. So I just want to make sure that if that comes up, that we are giving you guys enough money to cover said.
We believe there is. Currently, we're still going to stay with the mesh network, but I want to remind the board that we put fiber optic at the top of Margaritaville. So right now, we're beaming all the cameras to one location, which is St. Paul, with this Pablo Tower. Once all this gets up and running, we will be splitting the cameras in half and going to 2 locations. One will be at the top of Margaritaville with already existing fiber that the electric department had put in, and that we also agreed to would be a need for us in the future based on increased camera time. So there will be, as far as I know, in the CRA, no tunneling or digging as far as fiber optic is already in place. With the current mesh network, we believe that it will not be a bowling ball to a garden hose anymore as far as data, which is part of our problem before. We're pushing a lot of data, high-res cameras, to a real skinny pipe, and there wasn't enough room. That's how it was explained to me, and that makes sense.
So that was my first question. My second question, sorry guys, I'm taking a little dry up here, is other discussions we had about having the bodies to monitor said camera systems. We put this all together for you. Are you hoping to come back to us and like add additional staffing costs for you to have additional bodies to train specifically for this kind of monitoring?
That's a tough question. First of all, additional manpower is not my decision, that's a political decision. I probably will not be making a recommendation to add additional personnel to July. Currently, let's say right now, there's not a whole lot of money, like London or New York, or there's not so much a body in front of the camp. During all big weekends, special events, whatever, we always have eyes on the camp then when we set up the command post. So we intended to, if we can find the people, to train them, it's not very much training, to monitor these cameras for us. I don't have a senior officer with eyes on the camera. When needed, to not just view it when we need it, which I know when we need it, whenever we're busy, I can't tell you when we don't. Or to go back and access it when something happened the night before or 3 nights ago. Currently, there's just 2 people in the department that can do that. And of course, there's public records law, there's retention law, on all the videos. Sometimes got to be redacted depending on the victim. So I think I can do it with current personnel. As far as increased monitoring, just on the typical Friday night, I'm against it. I don't think it's needed. It's just my personal opinion.
Okay. That kind of answers my last question. I was going to say, I don't even know if it's a doable, if we're allowed to even set up a command post in the storage space or command center is technically here on, 4th and 2nd. I know that technically that has to be categorized as storage to keep its status in the CRA. So I don't even know if we could even do one there, but I don't know.
The downtown garage?
Yeah, but since you're talking about possibility of not, then I'm not even going to approach that question really, because I don't think we can do that anyway. That was just my other suggestion. So those are my questions. I super appreciate you guys taking the time. I'm excited about this. I think that our city needs it, and I think you guys need that support. So on that, I'll open it up to anybody else on the board who has questions to the presentation. Anybody? All right, go ahead.
A couple of quick questions for you. Covered one already, which was the monitoring of the system, which I think is important too. Obviously, it's going to be tied into your command center posts in some way when you have large festivals and things to that extent. Is that what will happen?
Yes, sir. It could be festivals, it could be events, it could be July 4th weekend, Memorial weekend. We'll have eyes on it. But don't forget, it's very difficult to staff 24/7 even for a large agency like the sheriff's office. You know, their real-time crime information center with all their resources might have one person in it over the overnight hours if we just don't have the personnel to do it. But yes, during peak times of those busy weekends, we will have eyes on it.
There was a comment made, I think, in the presentation about the life of the cameras, and that we've probably gone through a couple of different iterations of quality increases for cameras since we had ours installed. What's the general life expectancy of a camera?
You're looking at typically at 5 years, 4.5 to 5 years. You could certainly expect.
So it is 4.5, 5 years.
It's just like a laptop, sir, or a cell phone or anything else.
Yeah.
Plus, don't forget, just because we put these in 2017, we probably started this project in 2015. So by the time everything got filled in, the cameras were older than probably 5 years.
So at some point, if we're really looking at budgeting this properly, we need to start thinking about at some point in time replacement costs for the cameras about 5 years down the road.
I.e. the white paper, and that would be a living document that will be upgraded by Detective Burrell every so often when we get the replacement plan and everything else. Just realize we didn't want to put in new cameras and not replace the old cameras, because you'd be right back here in 6 months or a year with cameras starting to go out. We want to make a clean sweep of it. We felt the technology was most of it was old enough to go ahead and replace. And we are going to have a replacement plan, because I want to remind the board that because we're doing all this at once, we're going to have a big bill in 5 or 6 years. We're not going to be able to phase it in, which makes it cleaner from an organizational ordering standpoint, but it makes it a bigger cost at one time, which when you do it over 5 years or all one at a time, 5 years, it's probably going to be roughly the same depending on inflation.
When you were looking at the cameras, was there a consideration for license readers, cameras?
What, I'm gonna go back to my previous comments, I'm not gonna put one more dime into the system until what I got works. So, when this goes in, and this works, I will then consider phase 2, which will be, I've received a request from a few of the departments for a few other locations, along with LPRs, on license plate reading. That is a future endeavor, but I suggest we continue to do this in phases. This is phase 1, phase 2 will add some locations outside the CRA and possibly LPRs. Plus currently pending before the state legislature, once again, for the first straight year, we requested $250,000 from the state to launch our LPR program. It's a little different, but it's going to be carried on different networks, from my understanding. But don't forget, I still have the problem with someone looking at it.
So,
What I don't want to do is have another system like our national camera system with no maintenance, nobody in charge of it, no IT support. So we have to take a look at phase 2 or phase 3 for the LPR. I'm committed to LPRs. I just want to do it the correct way. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
no, that's fine. So the cameras that we're installing now have the number of pixels so that we can maybe still read the license plates and so forth, right?
We're thinking that between the increased resolution and the height of the cameras being brought down, that's going to ultimately afford us the best opportunity to see those things. So it's not guaranteed that that's going to be the best
But
opportunity.
it could be.
Yes, sir.
And for instance, now we have cameras going and coming out of every lot.
Okay.
Down First Street, down Second Street, at the major intersections, which we don't have now. That was the purpose for the increased cameras. We want to capture every plate that's conceivable going down the road. We're lowering them to get good physical descriptions. The pixels are much better to get vehicle descriptions. And the dash.
So Chief, that kind of brings up another question. Just we were having a discussion earlier today about the lighting in the downtown area and the fact that Beaches Energy is going to be going through and making some improvements in the lighting. Do we need to have some coordination between where the cameras are being located and where lights are being located downtown?
Electric knows we're putting this in. The answer is going to be no, because zero lux cameras.
Yes, sir, they're all approved. But
Go ahead.
yes, absolutely. We will be working with Beaches Energy to help with light poles and coordinating with them and working with them throughout this project as well.
Okay.
We have with the Wi-Fi project that we did with them as well, so they do kind of go hand in hand. But these cameras do have infrared, so we don't necessarily have to have a light. But yes, you're absolutely right, that is a benefit to the city.
Sometimes if you get too bright a light in a certain area, you're going to wash out the images and things to that extent. So obviously we want to try to avoid that. You're going to sole source. Obviously this hasn't been looked at or priced with anybody else. It's going sole source with Siemens is intent.
It's the existing system.
Okay.
So we're going to build off that existing system. We're not going to install all of it. We have to go out there on RFP, and we end up going with the same system.
And you feel comfortable that you can get the type of service that you need from Siemens to be responsive, to get out there and get the stuff done when it needs to get done?
Quick answer is, I don't know the technology, so yes, I feel comfortable because I know where Preston lives. I am comfortable with this in its current form, to do what we need to do for the system to work correctly. Yes, I'm comfortable.
The question I just have, Taylor, is we're in our budgeting for this year, for fiscal '23, we don't have anything in our budgets at this point in time for the camera systems, right?
We do for downtown. I mean, not for downtown, for South End, I'm sorry. That was put into the South End CIP. And then in our South End plan amendment, we added some text to cover additional security measures to also
Okay.
cover this project.
So the south end is covered, but not
And
the
then the
down.
downtown already has camera systems, so We did need to amend any verbiage in finance that they would help as far as where the money needed to come from which account, so they're gonna take care of that.
Okay, so it's a matter of us all working together to try to work through it, but the idea would be that in fiscal '23, we're going to hopefully be doing this installation.
Our target
Leave
date
that
is
to you.
November 1st, to do the first hole. I know. That's a big promise, but I finished. Can I add one more thing to the board, speaking of that? This current package was put together by Preston based on current supply chain availability and current pricing. So this is time sensitive, being that we're at 8% of inflation rate. And also currently, everything that we can get our hands on is currently available through the current supply chain, not out of stock. That was a very important factor. That's what took Preston so long the last few months, is to make sure everything, or almost everything that was on here as possible, is currently available to commercial vendors.
Thank you.
Okay, just a couple allocation questions so we can maybe get an idea on the service agreement, what of that 584.6 is going to be our responsibility. Just back of the envelope, if we do proration by number of cameras, it looks like about 51% would be CRA, South End, and downtown. Does that sound about right?
It'd be roughly 99 cameras out of 140, counting South End and downtown.
Okay, I came up with 195, because you have 139 existing cameras, and then you had 43 downtown. and
That was incorrect on that's not incorrect. We didn't explain that thoroughly. It'd be 139 total with the new ones.
Okay,
Out the door, 139 cameras.
okay,
Once it's-
so we'd be looking then more at 60,
Two-thirds.
two-thirds.
Yes, sir, that was our estimate.
And then on the command post, I know when you, Cape officers have to go respond to an incident outside of the district, they do allocation of time and stuff like that. What's going to happen with a hard cost like this if, say, 20% of the actual use of the command post is, for instance, outside of the CRA?
Well, that is a valid question. We could also, well, the camera system would mostly be used in the CRA and South Beach Park, although two-thirds of it, we could always prorate two-thirds of the command post if we had to. That didn't come up because it is at our station, and it is for the, we won't be monitoring like the tennis courts
Right.
with this system. So our assumption was the majority of CP command post activities would occur in the downtown area, really, not in South Beach Park. South Beach Park would be after the fact. We wouldn't have eyes on South Beach Park all the time. So we could do some quick figuring on that, and we could sort of prorate it if the board wants us to look into it. But I can tell you, 100% of the time over the last 3 years, the time when we shoot, the only time we set a command post and monitor or big events, it's all been in downtown.
Okay. Fair enough.
All right, I think that's everybody. We appreciate you guys taking the time. I know we did not address our Cape normal stuff, but I feel at this point that we're pretty much good. There's nothing to report other than really this for right now.
Nothing to report, and y'all got the first pitch. The second pitch will be made to council at the workshop tonight at 5:30.
Well, we wish you luck, and I personally am on board. All right,
Thank you.
thank you, gentlemen,
Thank you,
appreciate
board.
it. I'm going to shift things around a bit. I'm going to go ahead and do the new business because we have the applicant here for rezoning for the gallery project. Steve, what do you want to go ahead and do before we have a discussion in regards to your item?
I'm sorry? Well, that's on this, it's on the gallery. I'm happy, I'll let the staff typically makes their report first, and then I'm happy to answer any questions, really.
I would prefer beforehand if possible.
Oh, sure, happy to.
Go ahead and do your speaking, if you don't mind, name and address.
Okay, sure. So, my name is Steve Deaton, I wanted to in the Drive, Suite 1200. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. With me today is Caitlin Taylor, who's the representative for the owner, and then Joe Cronk, who's the architect on the project. And this is a proposal to rezone the property that includes the J. Johnson Gallery, Oku Restaurant, what we call the Sea Chasers lot, just because it was owned by the family that owned Sea Chasers for so long, which is kind of the northwest corner of the block, and then a long skinny strip of land between V Pizza and Flask and Cannon and Lynch's. And basically the purpose of the rezoning, after talking with the staff, was to wrap everything up all together in that one block and look at it from a unified perspective. It's listed in the application as being 4 separate phases, with the first phase being completed already, that is Oku and the gallery, and then progressing through phase 2, which is the skinny part that would become a restaurant between Lynch's and V Pizza, and then phase 3, which would be the Sea Chasers, the full development of the Sea Chasers lot, and eventually then phase 4, which would be the conversion of the gallery from being office on the ground floor to restaurants on the ground floor. And we're available to answer any questions that you may have, but that's the quick overview of why we're here.
Were you wanting to address anything in particular you're worried about with us, or would you like me to call you back afterwards if there's any discussion points? I would just assume to call you up as we discuss it.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
All right, Taylor, would you like to give us more information before we open up?
So I'm going to turn it over to our senior planner, and he is going to take you guys through a quick presentation, and then he will go over the actual application. He's the expert on this.
All right, so Christian Bacoli, Senior Planner. I'm just going to touch on some of the highlights in the memo, but in essence, the Gallery at Jacksonville Beach project is a redevelopment or RD rezoning request for property that's currently in the commercial business district zoning category. The property is bounded by 1st Street North, 2nd Street North, 4th Avenue North, and 5th Avenue North, and consists of approximately 1.15 acres of contiguous property. The property consists of 6 parcels, which each have unique real estate numbers and are under common ownership. Currently, it contains the Johnson Gallery and Oku Sushi, as well as some undeveloped dirt parking and other commercial space. And this property is across from the pier parking area. The applicant is proposing to continue the redevelopment of the property in phases, as they mentioned. It'll be a mix of commercial uses in order to further the objectives of the redevelopment plan as is outlined in the application and in accordance with the redevelopment district zoning requirements. The project contemplates a mix of restaurant, office, and commercial retail uses developed in phases, with phase 1 basically being the existing Oku Sushi restaurant and the gallery. The intent there is to capture some existing entitlements that are with the property. Currently in the CBD zoning district, you can't get a variance for parking, but that previously wasn't allowed variance that you could request, so there's an existing variance associated with the gallery property that they wanted to make sure that they captured. So going forward with this project, that 18, I believe, parking spaces are accounted for in the total parking calculation. Parking is currently provided in phase 1 on site, which is the Oku Sushi property. Parking for phase 2 would also be provided on site, and that would be in this area right here, would become a surface parking lot. In addition to that, there would be provisions for parking as the project continued, utilizing some different alternatives that are outlined in the land development code, on-site parking being one, off-site parking agreements with other properties, and then a payment in lieu process that we have where if you can't meet your parking, you pay into a central fund. Just to kind of briefly take you through the project. So just to orient you guys, this is Oku Sushi, that would be the gallery. Lynch's would be here, Flask and Cannon's here. Phase 1, again, is basically these 2 buildings accounting for the existing parking here and the parking that's captured by the variance here. Phase 2 would be the first new construction, and this would be that space between Lynch's and V Pizza. This would consist of a 2-story building predominantly for restaurant use. They're proposing some outdoor courtyard space here. And then the creation of this surface lot, which would account for the deficit in parking that this would create. The next phase, which isn't really easy to see here, consisted of a building that would go here. And total design of that obviously is a number of years out, so the specifics haven't been outlined in the proposal. But in essence, it would be 2 to 3 stories. It would either include ground parking, or parking could be provided through other means. And then the fourth and final phase would be the conversion of the gallery space into a mix of uses, including additional restaurant space and possibly office or retail, based on the number of uses that are outlined in the RD proposal. We reviewed the project and we find that it's consistent with our comprehensive plan and the development code, and we feel it's also consistent with the community redevelopment plan for downtown. It's a bit of a technical review. They did provide some general architectural renderings. This is Okusushi currently, and then the gallery, and this is what they're proposing. It's kind of their inspirational styles for the total project. Quick few things to highlight. They have some anticipated timelines for this. Under our code, they really need to activate this project within 2 years, and the intent is that phase 2 would be within that 2-year time horizon. So this project here, along with the parking, would be the first thing you'd see. And then the latter phases, phase 3, which would again be this new construction happening over this area, would be as soon as potentially 2028, and then phase 4 at a later date, possibly into the 2032 range. Okay, we covered parking already. So there is a parking calculation here that goes through each phase. And again, this is based on square footage, because most of our parking calculations are based on square footage. And this shows what would be required, what would be provided on site, and then potential shortfalls that they would have to address at a later time through those other means. Currently for phase 1, which is existing, obviously they're providing all the parking that they need to for that. Phase 2 would increase that by 15 or 16 spaces, and they would meet that. Phase 3, which would be that new building, they'd start to see that deficit over the existing parking, or the proposed parking. And then by phase 4, when they increase that square footage from currently office, gallery to restaurant or more intensive uses, that's where that deficit would really pick up. So again, this is sort of a timed-in project, so there's some specific benchmarks that they would have to meet as far as providing that parking to be able to build the new structures. They couldn't simply build it and say, we'll address it later. They still have to meet our current code requirements for parking at the time of construction. And then the only other thing I wanted to point out is there was a proposal to exempt part of the project, and I'll let the applicant kind of explain this in a little bit more detail, but the community, or the central business district, has architectural requirements, although relatively limited, that deal with how the buildings are constructed and how they face the street. One of the things it requires is basically what we refer to as a build-to line, as opposed to a setback, which you find in residential. So the buildings have to be on the street, the buildings have to address the street, and this proposed restaurant area wants to do sort of a courtyard outdoor seating on the first floor, and that would bring the building back quite a bit, which is outside of what those design guidelines state. So they're asking for that specific exemption. I would leave to the applicant as to whether or not they intend to meet those design requirements for the other building once constructed. Obviously, these two are existing. But again, staff is recommending approval. We find that it meets the requirements of the comp plan, land development code, and the redevelopment plan. I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you very much for that. I have a few of my own, and Jim, maybe you can answer them for me. I know that they have the parking deficit. I know we've had lots of discussions about parking garages, field parking garages, and our incentive platform. Is there any way to use some of the incentive platforms we're working on to, anything we should remind ourselves about for that?
Shouldn't go more than 7 group. I would say, the Madam Chair today, that within the next 30 to 45 days,
we will be bringing to you a very comprehensive new parking.
Can you speak up just a smidge?
I said within the next 30 to 45 days, we will be bringing to you a very new and detailed comprehensive parking program.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we address that, okay. Anybody else want to have, go ahead, you go first.
Couple questions. First, and I know this is probably a long way down, but just looking at the proposal and knowing the difficulty other properties have had, where is the dumpsters that these properties will use?
So, you can see in the back of phase 2, there's kind of a void, or, you know, right in there.
Mhm.
That's right. So that's the most likely location for phase 2, which is really the easier one. In phase 4, when the building converts and the ground floor goes to being restaurants, it'll probably be located under the courtyard, where you see the black dots and the word courtyard.
Yeah.
The technology's pretty good, and Joe Cronk, who's here with me, can correct me if I'm wrong, but we've talked specifically about it being located in that location for the restaurants that will be located in phase 2. And then the service to get to both of those would come where the circle is, where it says driveway and there's a little circle there. That's how they would service the courtyard, and then the other one would be accessed through the parking lot under the building. Again, if the building is at grade, then we're gonna have to figure out how to do the access over the driveway where the circle is to get to that second one in phase 2. If the building is off grade, then obviously it'll be easy and fit to go under the building in phase 3.
And Oku uses the dumpster across the street, or?
Oku uses the dumpster that's behind in their parking lot.
Oh, they have one.
And then-
They use it across the street.
Okay.
We're using that other spot next to
So Caitlin Taylor, who's the owner, just informed me it was across the
I
street.
said.
Yeah, Joe Cronk, Joe Cronk, 1936 San Marco Boulevard. I'm with Cronk Duke Architecture. You know, Stephen, one of the things that I think we talked about as well is a more permanent facility that is going to occur in the parking lot across the way. I think we had discussions that would be a way that as the phases come on, to keep that service out of the core, because our intent is really to bring pedestrians into the core and have a really kind of internal quality spaces, to have a remote compaction facility that would take care of that. So that's just down the road, but I think that's something that's a more preferable approach to these kind of courtyard, internally focused projects, and has worked in other projects.
In that same regard, getting away from trash, but, you know, if you're looking to do courtyards and stuff like that, what stands out here is there's this alleyway between the restaurant and Lynch's that it looks like they use for some parking in the back of Lynch's. Has there been any thought to somehow bringing Lynch's in as a partner to, access the alley in that area, or?
Well, you're obviously thinking kind of the way we think, and that is, you've got a very strong vehicular and pedestrian kind of edge to this block, but there's also a sense that in a lot of projects you've probably seen is really to bring almost an oasis inside. Part of that is to the south, so an ideal way between Oku and the eventual gallery is to have that center. Phase 2 becomes a project that is the link to draw from the east and the west and draw from the pedestrian into the core. So we'd really like to be able to see that from the north, from Second, from First, and ultimately from Fourth, so that we really get penetration from all sides. That would be the ideal master plan.
Because the alleyway is city right-of-way, right? Or property, and I don't know if there's a right-of-way agreement on it, but
I don't know either.
Yeah, because right now we're using the building as an access to go through the coffee shop. That's really the intent of that front courtyard.
Mhm.
Is it becomes a little bit of a pedestrian eddy. It's a little bit of respite from kind of the activity of First Street. You get carried in, and you get carried through the restaurant and back into the courtyard. We're not anticipating using that right of way that you mentioned at all. We've got a wall that separates those two. But to answer your question, I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Yep.
I'm going to also ask a question, and I'll also entertain anybody else afterwards. Has it been addressed with our current, what we're technically supposed to be encouraging on the block of 4th and 2nd, which, if I recall, I didn't have a chance to pull up my book, but if I recall, it's supposed to be residential or commercial use? Has that been addressed, and is that the intent of that future building? Since the restaurants, we're allowed, that block and basically what we're supposed to be doing. Has that been addressed or looked at?
Jim Gilmore, the answer to that is definitely yes.
Okay, so the proposal and all that, we don't have to dig into that because it does fit inside our parameters of what we're supposed to be encouraging for the area. Absolutely. Because there are people who live in that general vicinity that will make sure that we stick to that. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have questions? Go ahead.
First of all, this is kind of an exciting opportunity and could really be a win-win for both the developer as well as the city. And I think we're taking the right steps to make this thing happen. I'm just a little disappointed that it's going to be 7 years out by the time we get to phase 4 or something like that. I'd like to see that a lot quicker. But I think we've got some interesting opportunities, and dovetailing on the comments earlier about trying to create some intimate internal spaces, I think is real important. If there's a way, as you develop the latter phases of your project, that we can really focus on the intimate interior spaces, I think that would be a big win for everybody. For the businesses that surround that area, as well as for the city itself, and what we're trying to do in the way of visioning for the downtown area. I would also encourage you to really take a hard look at what I think is phase 3, which is the new building. And when you do that building, that somehow we activate the one edge of that building, either along 5th Avenue North or along 2nd Street, that there's some commercial retail along those areas to really activate the street level, rather than it just being parking underneath there and then some office or whatever the space is above that. I think that would be very beneficial in the long run for everyone. There are a great number of opportunities. I think overall you've done a great job of pulling it together. What we've seen in the way of drawings right now is existing elevations, basically, of existing buildings. I think it would be important to sit down at the appropriate times when you get into the next phases of development to come back and sit with staff, and let's make sure that the character of what we're creating is truly something that's going to be a win-win for everybody. So, I would recommend that if we approve this, that we approve it with a stipulation that you come back as you proceed with the different phases and give city staff another opportunity to take a look at it and for us to converse and make this the best potential project we can for everyone. But thank you for the efforts that you've made today. Appreciate it.
If I can elaborate, I think those are great ideas, and really, our intent, if you look at it, it's an important block. It's an important block for the CBD and for Jacksonville Beach, and we see it as an opportunity really to use it as a tool to kind of develop what is new Jacksonville Beach. What is the architecture? We've got some great precedent that's there. We've got some newer projects like the gallery that draws in a little bit of the traditional nature of a West Indies, Caribbean kind of architecture. But we also have Oku and some other great examples that are occurring right now. That's a newer language. It's still rooted in climate. It's still rooted in soft materials, but there's a little bit of a contemporary edge. So we want to have a great range through this project that allows for that to take place, not a singular, architectural statement. So I think those, and I appreciate you recognizing that, that's going to be important to all of these. And ultimately, if you look at Fifth Avenue North, like you mentioned, a great opportunity to create a secondary mini Main Street, a tertiary kind of relationship to what we hope eventually will go across the street. And that is that retail morning through afternoon engagement to activate that. We might take a little softer approach on Second because it is residential there. Too much retail, as we know, is going to be a tough battle, but use the energy where it's going to activate the street for sure. We're fortunate enough to have a great studio in Palm Beach and in Meisner's Courtyards. I'm sure you visited, so you know the quality of those spaces. We're not trying to create Palm Beach, but I think when you draw out the character and the scale of some of those, we want some of those little moments, some bigger moments, and I think that just gives a respite from a normal, beach street. You've got your big plazas, but you can also have your small, intimate moments, like you said.
Well, I thank you guys for coming in today and presenting this. I do not believe we have to do anything today. This is more informational. Am I correct or not?
Through the chair, technically you guys make a recommendation to city council. So this is going to planning commission this evening for the same review, and then it is tentatively scheduled for the 15th or 16th of August.
So basically, you just need a show of hands to say, yes, we're good with it. We don't actually vote. So,
I would like to do a vote.
You'd like to do a
someone just go ahead and make a formal motion, if there's any, whatever the recommendation you guys want, and then we'll take a vote just so we have that for city
that
council.
works for me. I will entertain a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve this request, but subject to final additional reviews at as each phase of the project moves forward with staff. And I think I'll leave it at that.
I would like to clarify that that would all have already happened. Is that correct? Any phase going forward would go through us, or is this the only time we review said project?
So typically for any project of this magnitude, it goes through staff for both engineering and building permit review. Typically the actual construction, whether it be the engineering or the building itself, wouldn't come back to this board. So if it's something that you want to see come back, you would add that to your recommendation to council.
So my understanding is you want to add that to your motion.
And again, I'm just referring to the design aspects of it. I'm not talking about the construction. But yes, I'd like to see it come back to staff, and staff have the opportunity to confirm that it meets the architectural criteria that have been established for the downtown district.
Okay. So for the, as it's currently zoned, then what you want to see is moving forward, once they have the RD rezoning, you want them to respect the guidelines as listed under the current zoning, which is the CBD architectural guidelines.
Right, and you have the opportunity at each of the phases to take a look at that.
And for that to be like a staff level review, and then we kind of come back and give you guys a staff report update.
I'm Gary. I think we're overstepping our bounds as far as the board on that. Personally, I don't know if that's something we can require for this. I think that's more going to be city council or their zoning. I think right now we're just on rezoning and what have you.
We're making a recommendation to city council, and they ultimately make this decision. So my recommendation would be that it has the opportunity to come back and for us or city council to take a look at it.
Would you like to specify a specific phase or every phase?
Well, each phase of the project, as I said.
Would that be something that would not be out of character?
I would say as a rezoning, because it's going from CBD to RD, you have the opportunity to add in criteria. As I mentioned earlier, they are asking for at least the phase 2 structure to be granted relief from those architectural standards because of the front courtyard. I don't know if the plan was for phase 3 to follow those standards. I think that's the question that Mr. Page was asking.
Right. So Steve Pimentel, you've hit the critical part, which is phase 2. We're asking for the waiver for the setback. Phase 3 is going to be determined in large part by what the long-term parking solution is for this area. So if there's a long-term parking solution that comes relatively quickly, then the chances of phase 3 building being on the ground and activating the streets is more likely. And the conversion of Phase 4 and the ground floor of the J. Johnson Gallery becomes much faster than what's listed in the RD rezoning application. Conversely, if it takes longer or there's no long-term parking solution, then all of that stuff changes. So we don't mind it being kept at the staff level at all, because we will be working with them on those guidelines, and if we find something that we need a waiver from, then we'll have to come back to this board and ask for it. But right now, our intention is we're only asking for one, which is on Phase 2, on the frontage that was shown above on the screens. So if it's at the staff level, we're totally fine with it. If it comes back to the board, and that's the recommendation, certainly we'll deal with it, but I'm struggling to understand what we would be judged by, like what would the standards be other than the same thing that the staff was reviewing. I don't know what the purpose would be of coming back to the board.
And that's why I was suggesting that it just be at staff level review is why I was recommending that.
We're totally fine with that, the way that you phrased your motion, as long as it's clear that we are asking for the relief on Phase 2 from the one setback. And yes, we're happy to work with staff on everything in every phase.
Thank you. So let's reiterate the motion so we can get a second. So the motion is that we are recommending the rezoning of the application for the gallery project with the understanding that Phase 3 and 4, we would like a staff review of architectural progress.
As the architecture gets developed for the next phases of the project, that there is an opportunity for staff to review that.
So you're good with that motion?
Yes.
And do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, with that, we will move forward. I'm going to take this moment to remind you guys, we do a hard stop today. And with that, I'm going to try to get the one thing we do need to vote on today done. Oh, sorry.
Nope, you're good. I was.
The vote.
Yes. Mr. Gary Bakow.
I was just trying to check on
Yes.
And if I may, to your motion, I'm sorry, just so we're clear, we made the motion to approve with the understanding that Phase 3 and 4 will come back to staff. I want to make sure, though, that in this motion, we are also good with granting Phase 2 from those standards due to the setback.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to add that in the recommendation to council. So Mr. Gary Paytown,
Yes.
Mr. Jeff Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Frances Pawlowski,
Yes.
Mr. David McCraw.
Yep.
All right, now to our time crunch. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you coming in. We do have one thing we do need to vote on today, so we're going to go ahead and jump into that. If you don't
Sure.
mind. Go ahead, give us the lowdown.
Yeah, so that's just going to be under old business. It should be relatively straightforward. We've seen the South End Plan Amendment in a workshop setting as well as a regular meeting setting. There were no major changes to be made from the agency. We included the camera system, and it's included as kind of overall security, elevated security. We made the maintenance a little less specific, so we could accommodate future maintenance problems, and then Jim and Taylor also made sure to add some language in there that referenced whatever technology was current at the time that the maintenance was needed, so we don't wind up in a situation like we did recently. We added passive parks, and other than that, there are no major surprises in the South End Plan Amendment. So this is the official resolution approving this. What this will now do is then tonight at the briefing, if you approve this, I will be talking to City Council about the plan amendment. They'll get a copy of it. We'll give them the reason, the intention. Thursday, we will start our advertising period. It will run on the beach's leader. We will notify the taxing authority via certified mail. And then August 15th will be the formal adoption of City Council.
I will open it up to the floor. Anyone have questions?
Jim, did I leave anything out? Okay.
I am surprised there's no questions. Oh, I do have a light.
Thank you. Taylor, just again, maybe I'm missing it, but, I don't see anything, and I'm looking at these summary sheets that we've recently received from our budget office, and I don't see anything in there that talks about the security. And so I just want to make sure that the funding is there for that.
These were done, I think, to be completely frank, with what the numbers they're working with now, and I highly doubt that, being that the security stuff was so new, I just doubt they thought to add it in there.
Okay, so it's just not been added in here.
That's my gut. I mean, I can't speak for Ashley, but I know it's in our CIP, so I know the money has been planned and accounted for. I don't know what happened on these shoots.
Okay, I just want to make sure we got it covered, that's all I.
Yeah.
Jim Gilmore, additionally that it is in the language of the plan amendment to fund.
Yes.
Take care of security.
Right.
That wasn't an issue.
Yep.
Right.
And to maintain and in the service agreement.
Yes.
And the other question I just have is that when we do this plan amendment, it includes utilities as a general item, not just stormwater management.
So I'm not sure I know how to answer that one.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah.
But it did include, remember what we were doing is we're adopting, just as the 2011 plan was, where that was a capital improvement program. What we're adopting with this plan amendment is a new capital improvement program that you've seen, and
That you're referring to Dennis having.
that is correct. That's a 5-year plan. Now, what it also does, it recognizes that all the other maintenance items that have been done in the past with TIF funds, that maintenance can continue. And that was a result of the 2017 plan amendment. But we took it one step further and said that everything can be maintained in accordance with the latest best practices, so to speak, so that we wouldn't run into that problem that we ran into. I can't remember what it was, Gary. Probably remember more than I remember about.
It was the
some water treatment
scrubbers.
plant.
Yeah, it was
You
the
couldn't-
scrubbers.
You couldn't fix it up with the latest ways and means because it wasn't allowed in the plan. So that was the other major change.
What I was trying to get at, Jim, was I know that what Dennis had presented is all focused on stormwater management, but yet they haven't really looked at water and sewer and some other services.
Then that would come back to be an additional CIP addition and an additional plan amendment.
So that's what I was trying to.
It would have to be
the
an
additional
additional
plan, and then I was hoping if it was a broader
No.
term, it's just utilities that we could cover
You
that.
can't quite get away with that one per
Can't get away with
statute.
that. That'll be an additional plan amendment, yes.
Okay.
And Gary, too, it's recommended that we update these plans a little more regularly than we were previously. So as the CIP, it's going to evolve every year. When there's a major substantial change like that, then I think it would deem itself appropriate at that point to look at updating the
It's
plan.
relatively easy to do. Just a little bit.
Okay, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think what you're pointing out, Taylor, is something that's important. David, back me up if I've got this wrong, but in our FRA 101 class that we took, one of the things that was talked about in that class was that you need to do updates of your plans every 5 years, and that needs to be done on a regular, consistent basis. And so I think we need to make sure that for both our districts that we're doing that in the future.
Definitely.
Anybody else? All right, I will entertain a motion. Anybody?
Well, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve Resolution 2022-05, the South End Plan Amendments.
Entertain a second?
I'll second.
All right, with that, the resolution has,
Mr. Gary Paytown?
Yes.
Mr. Jeff Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Francis Pawlowski? Mr. David McGraw?
Yes.
Thank
like
you.
something else on mine. That's how it is. With that,
Okay.
we are now officially approved.
Awesome.
For time constraints, since we now have 10
Yep.
minutes, I think that the cash forward projection is probably going to take a bit more than 10 minutes. Is anybody else going to argue with that?
I can ask finance too if they're able to attend the office workshop, so they can be the ones to go over it
I would
anyway.
prefer to do that so we can get to the last item of the schedule.
I just may add a comment in reference to the additional information that we received. This is exactly what I've been looking for, and answers quite a bit in the way of questions. Have a few minor questions, but I've already relayed those to Taylor, and I think she's working with.
I'll send them to Ashley, so.
Yes, and so hopefully we'll get those answered too. And I think this is, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I think hopefully, this is a great tool, something easy to look at and decipher and know where we're heading over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. So So you'll get us some kind of answers to him. his
Absolutely.
questions, And then just do a summary for the group.
Absolutely, and then I will request that they just come to the August
I
workshop.
just think for time constraints, it just makes sense to just.
And I think there are some big updates and staff reports that you guys come from.
That's why I'd like to get this staff report, so if you'll do your highlights for us,
Yes.
because we can read, but.
Very
highlights are
quickly.
great.
The staff report, I would just like to let everybody know that all of the lots are gone. They all sold at this auction this afternoon. They all sold over the starting bid, so that is very exciting. Finance is very happy on that one. Lakeland Plaza, we will be opening those bids on August the 3rd at Sugar Avenue, 2 p.m. You've got a rubric that is very objective review, certain amount of points for each, and then in August we'll be bringing the recommendation and show you guys the scoring. The market analysis, we are working on a narrative right now to kind of explain what it is. Actually, Jim, I'll talk to you about that. I want to get Jim's input just on how to word the market analysis to go on our website or a Facebook post to appropriately put that information out there, but then also kind of, we want to make sure we word it right to get kind of the temperature. The P3 policy draft is in review internally, and Jim and Taylor are reviewing that as well. And then other than that, don't think I had, we've got some really exciting stuff downtown. Not too much we can speak on. I will say we have been working diligently with the owners of Habibi's, and when they are ready and the time is appropriate, I think the agency will be very excited with what is going to happen with that parcel. So,
Do we know, I saw that there's a notice that went out to people who are nearby for their variance, so do we know how much further after that? I saw something come across my, as our office is right there.
yes,
Well, I saw something.
what did Heather and me advertise the other day? Heather was writing the signs. I think it's this. What Habibi? Habibi's not advertising anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely not that yet.
All right, so do we have a guesstimate when that might come to us?
Not at this point. We're working with them right now to set up a meeting internally with all the different departments that will be involved. But right now, everything is still conceptual and preliminary. Just I promise everybody will be very happy.
And to just continual question, how are they at compliance?
It looks better. They got 2 floors over the limit.
I was going to say, Christian, you can do the honors of this part.
Yeah, we work with the fire marshal, and they've been instructed to clean the site, and they should be securing the site with fencing and all that stuff, hopefully soon, so.
Hey, you can, you're more to talk about, do we have questions?
Not on much of that. I mean, the rest of it's pretty straightforward. You guys can, I mean, like we always say, you guys can see what's in it. Any questions you guys have, I'm happy. Oh, tonight also, we have the quarterly report for council. This staff report was in there. I also added some additional notes, just on things that we have going on as far as all of this meeting. So we'll talk about that at the briefing at 5:30, as well as the South End plan.
So the one thing I wanted to ask you is the art committee, and should that be included in, like, a little more about the art committee than?
I can include as much as you guys want on the art committee.
Well, I did look it up, and of course I just stapled everything together. So my question is, if this is going to the council, what have you, and that's a new thing, and their very first meeting wasn't a quorum.
Oh, yeah, they've got a different memo, so theirs goes into more in-depth, but I mean, it is what it is. Hey, we've had meetings at this board without quorum, so I'm just saying,
I just
give them a break.
didn't know, I go into that, so I just didn't know if I just wanted that.
I understand the point. The first meeting, I think we ran into some hiccups. Unfortunately, we've recently found out that one of the members had to, they had to move, so we are going to have to fill a seat. And quite frankly, being a new board, it's challenging to get things off the ground. Gary was at our first meeting, though, and I think Gary can attest to, now that we finally had our first meeting, it went exceptionally well. And we feel really excited to continue moving forward, as long as we can have a quorum every meeting.
Yeah, on the update on the maintenance plan, I understand that this is something for downtown that it sounds like you're coming back to us with something.
Yeah.
I thought all along that we were kind of hamstrung in the downtown with that enhanced or elevated maintenance thing, and there was nothing we could do about it. But it sounds like
We were.
But now it sounds like we're going to do something about it?
Yeah, so, We're going to do a plan amendment, because the way it was adopted, the council resolution that adopted it, it limited us to only doing the enhanced maintenance in the downtown, whereas the south end it does not. So the question I asked was, why can we do this in south end, not downtown? Finance let us know, and so giving fingers crossed everything goes according to timeline. I have sent a resolution for review by Parks. They've reviewed it, made their comments, and then get Jim and Taylor to look at it, and then we'll bring that hopefully at the August meeting for you guys to review.
So this is one of those things that I can ask the question, why wasn't this done before? And you will not have the answer because you weren't here.
Absolutely.
But, okay.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's not, yeah, it's not.
But we're doing it now.
Okay, it's good to hear.
And it will be fixed again, as long as we stay on our August and September timeline. It's pretty tight, but it will be done before the next fiscal year, which is the goal. So starting fiscal year 23, we start with a clean slate on both plans, and we're able to fund the things we need to fund in the districts.
Gary?
Just two last quick comments. I guess I would just like to comment on the art committee meeting that happened recently. I attended that meeting, and it was fun to see the enthusiasm and the creativity of the members of that committee. They've got a vision already, and they're ready to hit the ground running, and hopefully will present us with some wonderful, ideas and options that are going to help make the downtown much more attractive and bring people into the downtown. But it was fun to sit there and just listen to the comments, and their vision very nicely dovetailed with everything that the city council as well as the CRA has already been looking at. But they're being given a lot of other materials that will help them better understand the criteria and so forth. But they're ready to go, and it'll be fun to see what happens over the next months.
Yeah.
Taylor, I have a request.
Sure.
Can we get rid of that porta potty that sits on First Street and 12th Avenue South? It's been there for 2 years or more, and it's time to get rid of it and move it.
Part of that build out.
Yeah.
It's not ours, I think it's part of theirs.
Yeah, it's right outside the district, isn't it?
It's
Is that the historic
that new
property?
construction that's on 12th Avenue South, and it's sitting there right at the corner on the sidewalk, and it just,
Yeah.
Construction site though, without a porta potty.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's required that they have one because it's considered an active construction site because they have a permit.
but the construction's, there's nothing going on down there. You go down there and there's nothing happening down there. It's been, they've removed the construction dumpster. Everything is buttoned up on the outside of the building.
I can absolutely talk to George and get some clarification and see if it's able to be moved to a better spot on the site, but it has to be at the site somewhere. And as far as us having it,
Assuming they're still doing construction.
they are.
Boy, that's 3 years now that they've been working on that project.
Is this the Azure?
I was going to say, are you talking about the Azure condos or something? Yeah, I think we're talking about two different sites.
This is 12th Avenue South.
And yeah, Azure's 14th, so I don't know.
The condos, they're townhomes or whatever that are sitting there.
Yeah, they should be finishing up those soon. They've been working on it. I was down there the other day, so I know they're working. Yeah, let me talk to George, because that is in our district.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll shoot you an email, Gary, and let you know what he says.
All right. So other than us deferring the cash flow to our workshop, it looks like we've done everything on this list. Is there
Yeah, very
anything
quickly.
anybody else wants to use our last 2 minutes on? No, I'm super.